So I thought for sure that they were just gonna send us home. Hi guys, welcome back to our channel, or if you're new here, I'm Laura and welcome to our family. We would love it if you could stick around and subscribe. Today I wanted to share my birth story of my second son, Isaac. So if you don't already know, we lost our daughter due to cervical incompetence. I went into labor at 20 weeks. My husband and I made videos talking about our experiences, so if you want you can check those out. And I also made a video talking about my experience having a cervical cerclage, and that was with this pregnancy, my second pregnancy. I talk a little bit more in detail there about my experience with the cerclage and how I felt. I wanted to share Isaac's birth story because I think birth is something that is so beautiful. It is honestly something that I love so much. I love hearing other people's birth stories. I just think it's fascinating, and every single experience is different for everyone in every single pregnancy and delivery. I would also love to have this recorded just so that I can remember all the details and so that I can look back on this one day. I guess the story starts when I got my cerclage taken out at 36 weeks. The doctor took out my cerclage and he checked, and I was already dilated to a 2. At that point my doctor said, okay, you made it this far and that is huge. And so he said like the baby could come anytime and that it would be okay, even though it's still considered preterm. 36 weeks was a lot better than 20 weeks. After I got my cerclage taken out, I noticed a difference. I could kind of feel that he dropped. I felt more pressure, a little bit more cramping and pain. Before I got my cerclage taken out, I would be on bed rest, on and off. I would try to stay off my feet, try to take it easy just because I wanted to keep my baby in as long as possible. When I got the cerclage taken out, I was in full-on nesting mode. I just wanted to make sure that I got everything ready, so I wasn't focusing too much on staying off my feet. I was just kind of getting things ready around the house, cleaning, preparing things, and so I was just on my feet more. So the next week at my 37-week appointment, it was January 28, 2021. So I remember going into my appointment, and since I had a lot of contractions throughout the week, I thought that I for sure had progressed, that I was dilated some more. And I remember when the doctor checked me, I was still just dilated to a 2 and I was 80% effaced. And the doctor said that he wouldn't be surprised if the baby came that weekend. I was excited. I felt like the baby was going to come soon. I actually had my suspicions. I thought that the baby might come that night because one of our friends who is a midwife and a doula, she had some classes talking about birth and pregnancy, and in the classes and what we've learned from her is it's also possible that when there's a full moon or when there is a storm coming, and especially when both of those happen, that it can cause a woman to go into labor if the baby is ready to come. And on the 28th, there were both those things, a full moon and a storm was coming. So that's why I had my suspicions, and I thought that it might be on the 28th, but then we decided we just wait it out. So then after the appointment, my husband and I decided to go get some dinner. We ate and then we went back home and we decided to play Just Dance. And we did about 10 songs, and my husband would purposefully choose like the hard ones where we were squatting. And so we were just trying to have fun with it. But afterwards I did get tired doing that. Afterwards we also spent time together, and I was feeling more pain and cramping afterwards, and I could feel some pressure. I decided to rest and just see if the contractions would go away, because the week before I would start having contractions kind of frequently for about an hour, and then I would rest and hydrate and they would go away. So I decided to try doing that again just to see if they would go away. So I was resting, I was making sure that I was drinking plenty of water, and I was still feeling the contractions. And they weren't super strong, but I could feel them. They felt more than just the Braxton Hicks. So then I decided to take a bath, and so I was just relaxing in the warm water for a little bit. I would have my husband pour some water over my belly as I was having a contraction. After the bath, I was still having contractions, and so we prayed and we felt like we should just go to the hospital just to be safe. So when we decided to go to the hospital, it was around 10:30 at night. And we actually, right before we left, we took one last bump photo of me before going to the hospital, because we realized, oh, we haven't taken one of 37 weeks yet. So we just took the picture and then we headed over to the hospital. And as we were driving to the hospital, I felt like my contractions were less strong. And so I thought, oh, this isn't it. Like, they're probably just gonna stop, or they're probably just gonna send us home. So when we got to the hospital, I told them that I was having contractions contractions, that I thought I might be in labor. So we went in and the nurses, they took me to a triage room. The nurse checked me and I was still just dilated to a 2 and 80% effaced. So I thought for sure that they were just gonna send us home. They said they would keep us for about an hour to monitor my contractions and see if I progressed at all at that time. And it was about like an hour or an hour and a half that we were there waiting, and I didn't really feel the contractions as strong. I actually felt like they were a lot better. I was just chilling there, laying down. I was just on my phone, playing games, reading. So I thought for sure that it wasn't happening, that they were gonna send us home. And I remember the nurse came in and she checked me, and I remember she just looked at me and smiled and she said, "Welcome, you're dilated to a 4." And I couldn't believe it. I just remember at that moment, I just felt so much excitement. It was just so surreal knowing that our baby was coming, that we were finally about to meet our baby. And so that was at 12:30, and so they got us out of the triage room and they admitted us into one of the rooms. They put in an IV and they drew some blood for some lab work, and they just left the IV in. I wasn't hooked up to any fluids or anything, and I told them that I wanted to try to do a natural birth. What my goal was for this labor was I wanted to go as far as I could unmedicated, but I was totally fine and open to having an epidural. I thought that way because I don't see anything wrong with having an epidural. I just wanted to try to do natural, but I also didn't want to just fully commit to saying, oh, I'm doing a natural birth, because if I ended up getting an epidural, I didn't want to feel disappointed in myself. And so that was my goal, just to see how far I could go unmedicated and then get an epidural when I need it. And so I told the nurses that, and so they brought in a birthing ball that I could use. That was great. I was just sitting there with my husband. I was kind of breathing through the contractions, but I felt like they were definitely still manageable. At that time, we also told our families what was going on, and my mom came around 2:15. At that time, that's when the doctor came in and he checked me and he said that I was dilated to a 5.5, and he broke my water. They asked me if that was something that I wanted, and I said yes, because I knew that that could help speed up the labor. But once he broke my water, that is when the contractions picked up, and that is when they started getting really, really painful. For a good hour and a half to 2 hours, my husband and my mom did really good at helping me through the contractions. They would do counter pressure. I would be sitting on the birthing ball, and my husband would do counter pressure on my knees, and my mom would do counter pressure on my back. We had a good system going where I would say okay, and then they would push, and then afterwards I would kind of catch my breath. And having them there was really helpful because they would remind me to breathe. My mom has had several natural births, and so it was reassuring to have her there because she had been through it. She knew what I was going through, and I felt like her advice was just really important at that time. Now, a little bit before 4, I felt like all of the contractions were just intensifying so much, and I started to feel the urge to push. I just started feeling a lot of pressure down there, and so I couldn't really fight the urge to push. And so I was trying to switch positions, so I would stand up and lean on the bed, and then it felt worse, like I felt more pressure. So I thought, no, let's not do that. I would try laying down in the bed, and then I thought, no, let's not do that. So then Jared called in the nurse, because I also said I think I want an epidural, just because I was in so much pain. I felt like I couldn't handle it anymore. So the nurse came in and she checked me, and I was dilated to an 8 and 90% effaced. And she said, okay, I'll come back in an hour to check you. And at that point I thought, oh, I can't survive another hour. I can't do this. And my mom told me, she's like, you're not gonna be in labor for another hour. So we just kept breathing through the next few contractions. I went back onto the birthing ball. During a contraction, as I was breathing, whenever I would breathe out, my body would just instinctively just start to push. And I felt something drop, and I think his head just kind of dropped lower, and I felt a gush of water come out. And I think I peed a little bit. So it was probably both, I'm not sure, but I just felt just this gush of water coming out of me. We called the nurse because I felt it was just really, really strong. I felt that pressure was just so hard not to push. The pressure was just really, really strong, and the contractions were just one right after another, and they were lasting like over a minute long, and so I felt like I wasn't really having a break from the contractions, and so it was just really, really intense. So the nurse came back in and she said I was dilated to a 9, and she said that the head was right there, and so she started to get the nurses in, and they called the doctor. And I was actually going to have a different OB deliver my baby, and they called him about a half hour before saying that I was progressing, so he was actually on his way over, but he wasn't gonna gonna make it in time. And so the OB that was on call was the one that came in. I remember as I was laying on the bed, the nurses said, okay, we're gonna start doing some practice pushes now. You're fully dilated, you can start pushing. And so they're like, okay, they try to explain the pushes to me, and I just felt so relieved that I was able to start pushing. And so I just pushed with all my might, and the nurses were like, oh wow, like, yeah, you're doing great. You know how to push. That's exactly what you need to do. And I remember that I was laying there in the bed, and the doctor was putting his gloves on, he was putting the gown on, and then I was pushing, and then he looked down and he was like, oh, he is right there. Hold on. Just do little like grunting pushes. And so I was trying to do just little pushes as he finished getting his gown on. And then so right when he was ready, I was having a contraction and I felt the urge to push. We pushed for that contraction, where I pushed 3 times of 10 seconds each. And I remember I just pushed with all my might. I was just feeling so much pressure that I just forced all of my energy out into pushing. And I remember after the 3rd push, I stopped and like, I caught my breath, and then the nurses and my mom and everyone was like, wait, he's right there, push again. So I pushed 2 more times, and I remember just opening my eyes and I saw my baby there. The doctor was holding him and he put him right on my chest. So my son Isaac was born at 4:27 a.m. on January 29th, 2021. As he was laying on me, the nurses started wiping him down, cleaning him, and it was such a surreal moment feeling him on my chest and then hearing him cry. It was just the most beautiful thing that I remember hearing. I remember I just felt so relieved and just so grateful that we had our rainbow baby, that he was here, that he was alive and well. And I remember I reached down and he grabbed onto my finger, and I thought that was just the sweetest thing. And it was just so surreal. And then after they wiped him down, they laid him on my chest, and having him so close to me was it was such a beautiful moment. I loved that so much. It brought me so much comfort, and I was honestly just so happy. I loved also being able to look at my son and seeing him turn from gray to pink and red. I thought that was just the coolest thing, just seeing the color transition. And then one of the coolest things is that when they put him on my chest and we did skin to skin, he instantly started looking for my breast and he just latched on and started breastfeeding. I remember thinking like, this is amazing. Like, I didn't have to do anything. Like, he just went and did it. And so I remember at that point, I just felt so happy that I got to start experiencing motherhood here on earth. And that was just something that I was just dreaming of and so looking forward to. And I felt like I was finally living my dream. While he was laying on my chest, I told the doctor that I wanted to do delayed cord clamping. And it was actually pretty cool because while he was on my chest, I was able to reach down and touch the cord, and I felt the blood kind of still flowing through. So then after a few minutes, my husband was able to cut the cord. That was something that he wasn't able to do with Evelyn just because everything happened so fast, and the doctor wanted us to be able to hold her while she was still alive. And so I thought it was cool that Jared finally had a chance to do that, because I feel like that's a typical thing, like, oh, the father gets to cut the cord. And so I was just really happy that he was able to do that. Now, I was always told that people would say like, oh, if you have a natural birth, once the baby comes out, you don't feel anything. And in a way, that's kind of true, because nothing compares to the pain of pushing the baby out, of like that pressure before. Like, that was the most painful thing. But I still felt pain delivering the placenta and getting stitches. So I remember at that point, I was thinking like, what? People said this doesn't hurt. Like, I can still feel everything. This is still uncomfortable. But I'm guessing it's just in comparison to the pain before, it was less, but it was still painful. I could feel the numbing shots that they were getting me. I did tear quite a bit. I had a few 2nd-degree tears down and to the side, so I needed several stitches, and it was really uncomfortable getting stitched up. But I remember I just would hug my baby and I would just smell him and just be close to him, and it made everything okay. And he was just perfectly healthy. He was just so beautiful. He was 7 pounds 3 ounces and 20 inches, and so he was a great size for being at 37 weeks. Overall, it was just such a beautiful experience. I really loved it. I actually enjoyed laboring naturally, even though it was hard at some times. It was very difficult and painful. I got to appreciate just feeling my body work to bring my son into the world. And it was a really neat experience. I thought it was just so cool. Our bodies truly are so amazing. And yeah, that's the story. Isaac is now over 2 and he just loves to do things. Anytime he sees us do something, he wants to do it, and he's learning so much. It is so fun. He still has such a sweet personality and we love him so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoy. Please give this a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you guys at the next video. Bye!